At Stevenson School in Pebble Beach, California, and I'd like to welcome you to our last installment, the 15th program in a series we call College Prep for You. We've done this for 2 years. We had about 12 shows last year, and this is our 15th show this year. And they've all been intended to put out some information about this interesting, mysterious, sometimes perplexing process of applying to college and gaining admission. This program goes out to the schools in Monterey County. It's got a foundation funding it, and we've covered lots and lots of different topics this year. We started out with a broad overview of the process. We talked to some college admissions people in a panel that we had at Stevenson School where some students asked a variety of questions to 4 or 5 admissions officers. We've talked about financial aid, merit aid. We've talked about gaining good recommendations, visiting colleges. We've talked about the 2 college tours that our school takes, one in the fall, one in the spring. We've talked about the public universities and colleges in California. We've basically gone soup to nuts, and we varied back and forth between the juniors and the seniors during different times of the year when it's appropriate that we deal with them. The first half of the year we obviously dealt much more with the seniors, and then as we transitioned to the juniors after the beginning of the year, we focused on them. Sometimes I gave this presentation by myself. Sometimes I had a student or 2, and then for some of our bigger shows we had a variety of parents, sometimes a coach, sometimes an athletic director, and we had more of a panel discussion. Throughout we've had some PowerPoint information, and we've tried to make this sort of a conversational tone, and our whole goal is to provide information for you. We're going to finish this season with the appropriate closing of the year, since we just had our graduation at Stevenson on Sunday, and I guess that most of the high schools that this is going out to in the Monterey Bay Area are going to have their graduations, if not this weekend, then the following weekend. So it's highly pertinent, and it's intended to give you some closing thoughts on the transition to college. This is called Letting Go and Breaking Away, and it's based on one of the last workshops that we do for our families. So we're going to tell you as much as we can about this process. We're going to read a few things to you, hopefully inspire you, hopefully head off some parental problems. We're going to talk about a variety of things here. With me today is Frank Stevenson, one of my good friends and peers at Stevenson School, and we're sort of lucky to have Frank. He and I are sort of part of the Good Old Boy Network. We've been down the road a bit and done lots of things in education. Frank's got me one-upped a little bit, though. We both have kids through the process, but Frank's been on both sides of the desk. He's from back east and done a lot of things there. And well, let me let Frank tell you more in detail about what he's done. Frank, what can you tell us about yourself?
Well, I went to a boarding school in Canada and then went to the United States for college, to a small college in Maine where I studied philosophy and was an All-American hockey player and acted in plays. And then I went back to work at that college in the admission office, so I worked several years in the admission office before getting into other administrative parts of the college. And then in 1980, I came out to California as director of admission at the Thatcher School, boarding school down south. And then I started my own business as a college consultant, college and school consultant, helped families look for appropriate schools and colleges, graduate schools, and so on for a number of years. And then I had an opportunity to get back into school life, which I missed greatly. And so I've been working at Stevenson since 1998 as Director of Alumni Relations and enjoying it very much. And I'm very happy now to be part of your college counseling staff. Look forward to it.
Yeah, we feel that that's a pretty big coup for us. You know, Frank's done virtually everything on both sides of the coast. He's been on both sides of the desk. He's got his own kids who've gone through this process. He knows about the fundraising. He knows about admitting kids to school. He knows about helping kids getting into a variety of schools. So we think this is just a wonderful addition. And in addition to that, he's a sort of good friend of mine. We're golfing buddies, and we talk shop once in a while. So I'm looking forward to this. Frank's helped me out with some other workshops, and I think he's going to be able to share some interesting things for us. I have a son who's, in fact, he's finishing, grad school now. My daughter's gone through grad school, and it's been a while since they've gone through the process, but I remember it very acutely. And your son just graduated, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
He graduated 2 Fridays ago from the California Institute of the Arts, where he studied photography and film. He worked very hard, enjoyed it very much, and but his experience is, as you say, it's a different life going off to college. He had a tough freshman year with a roommate issue, but he solved that and worked that out on his own. I was very proud of him, and he took the bull by the horns and did what he had to do, and And so for the past 3 years, he's really had a wonderful time at college. It's meant a lot to him. He loves what he's doing, and so the next step is the next step.
Yeah, and I think one of the nice things about this job and this process is that we can call upon our own experiences with our own children to fill in lots of the gaps that the books and the training doesn't provide for you. And we're going to refer to some of those things as we talk today. Well, let's get started with the PowerPoint. This is called The Transition to College, Letting Go and Breaking Away. And as we start, I wanted to point out to the viewers that we're going to have 3 links to this, and this is going to go pretty quick here, but you can Google these things. One is this information is all found on the KMST site. You can see the address right there, or just Google KMST and it'll be pretty obvious where you can get links to this show. And it's going to run throughout the summer, so you'll be able to see it in sequence, all 15 shows, and sort of pick and choose the things that appeal to you and are appropriate, especially if you're an upcoming senior, you're finishing your junior year, and even if you're a sophomore, some sort of important things for you to take a look at. The next thing is Vimeo. This is another thing that's on the internet. Just go to that site if you can and try to sort it out, and maybe we'll go back and look and find it out. You know, if you absolutely need to, you can give us a call and we can help you with that. And then the last source that's pretty easy, it's on iTunes. And you can get some of your kids to help you find that out, but you can go to iTunes and dial in College Prep for You, and you can download these onto your MP3 or iPhone or iPod and just listen to them and see them, and it's just going to be a good little refresher course for you. So without further ado, let's get started with this program. In the introduction, we're going to talk, obviously we're giving a nice welcome and overview of the process, but basically there are 2 themes. The major theme is students are going to be breaking away, and they must break away, and if they don't, there's something wrong with the process. So it's a normal, natural thing that you can anticipate and follow through. And the other part of the equation is parents must learn to let go. And it's hard to do that just when your kid grows up at some point, but it's also exacerbated. It's much more difficult when your kid goes away to college, and there are lots of threats and dangers, plus it's an expensive thing you're paying for. So it's a two-edged sword here that we have to deal with and get involved with. This program is going to deal with a variety of things. The transition to college, all the different psychological behaviors, logistics, those sorts of things. And when I talk about behaviors, I'm talking about behaviors of both parents and students. And then what can we do about those? Not just ignore them or deal with them. We have to address them head on and try to adjust and accommodate those behaviors that we see in ourselves and in our kids. The distinct farewell process is not something that just sort of happens. I guess it could happen, but it's much better if you can think about it, orchestrate it, and manipulate it so it goes the way that you want it, and you won't have any regrets about what you did or didn't do. We're going to talk about the ABCs, the logistics of the move. It's sort of a guy's approach to things to do a problem solve. Geez, we've got a problem, I want to solve it. Whereas some of the more psychological things, the emotional things, the sort of the ephemeral things, are on our feminine side, both for the men and women. And so we're going to try to address both of those. We're going to talk about the actual moving in for freshman year, and then what it's like on the home front for parents being at home, and then lastly, after the freshman year, going through Thanksgiving, coming home for that new awakening after we have this new student. And then after that, you're pretty much on your own. We've got advice through that freshman year, and then it's going to be learning on the job. This workshop that we have at Stevenson and that we've based this information on is based on a couple of books that I've read and I think are pretty wonderful, and you could run out and buy these if you'd like. Letting Go has been in its 5th printing, and it's written by 2 wonderful ladies at Washington University in St. Louis. It's a parent's guide to understanding the college years, and I've ripped off a lot of other things, so if you read that, you're going to recognize a lot of the things you see in the program today. And this other one I found is by Carol Kuykendall. She's a mother in Colorado Springs, I guess, pretty conservative area. And this book's a little more conservative, a little more spiritual, a little more religious, touches more the emotional side, the religious side, the feminine side, but preparing for that new life that you are going to have and your kid's going to have, the focus on the family. So I think it's helpful, not as great as the other one, but I think they're a nice complement to each other. So I think we'll start off with 2 readings. I'm going to give you a poem after we get the stage set. Normally we have a little background music. In fact, we start the workshop with some pretty cheesy music, one by Bette Midler and then another one by, in fact, my kids, my wife sort of rolls her eyes when we play this, but we do this just to set the tone and to let people know it's sort of emotional, and we certainly can't do that today, but we're going to start with some sort of emotional readings because a lot of this process is emotional, it's rational, but try to make it rational, but it's emotional, and it is a it's a process where families change. You know, there's a little fracturing. It's probably not as abrupt and dangerous as this walkabout that people do in Australia, but it's a big comeuppance, especially for the first time a son leaves or daughter leaves. And we found this beautiful reading from Bill Bryson's book, and the section he wrote is called On Losing a Son, and I thought I'd pitch that to Frank, since his son left him a little bit more recently than mine. In fact, his son just finished college last week. So share that with us, Frank.
Well, and I feel much of, having read this, I feel much of the same sentiments that this expresses. This may get a little sentimental, and I'm sorry, but yesterday evening I was working at my desk when my youngest child came up to me, a baseball bat perched on his shoulder and a cap on his head, and asked me if I felt like playing a little ball with him. I was trying to get some important work done before going away on a long trip, and I very nearly declined his request. But then it occurred to me that never again would he be 7 years, 1 month, and 6 days old. So we had better catch these moments while we can. We went out onto the front lawn, and here is when it gets sentimental. There was a kind of beauty about the experience so elemental and wonderful I cannot tell you. The way the evening sun fell across the lawn, the earnest eagerness of his young stance, the fact that we were doing this most quintessentially dad and son thing, the supreme contentment of just being together. And I couldn't believe that it would ever have occurred to me that finishing an article or writing a book or doing anything at all could be more important and rewarding than this. What has brought on all this sudden sensitivity is that a week or so ago, we took our eldest son off to a small university in Ohio. He was the first of our 4 to fly the coop, and now he's gone. Grown up, independent, far away. And I am suddenly realizing how quickly they go. Once they leave for college, they never really come back, a neighbor who has lost 2 of her own in this way told us wistfully the other day. This isn't what I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear that they come back a lot, only this time they hang up their clothes, admire you for your intelligence and wit, and no longer have a hankering to sink diamond studs into various odd holes in their heads. But the neighbor was right. He is gone. There is an emptiness in the house that proves it. I hadn't expected it to be like this because for the past couple of years, even when he was here, he wasn't really here, if you see what I mean. Like most teenagers, he didn't live in our house in any meaningful sense. More just dropped by a couple of times a day to see what was in the refrigerator, to wander between rooms, a towel around his waist, calling out, "Mom, where's my," as in, "Mom, where's my yellow shirt?" and "Mom, where's my deodorant?" Occasionally, I would see the top of his head in an easy chair in front of a television on which Asian people were kicking each other in the head, but mostly he resided in a place called Out. My role in getting him off to college was simply to write checks, lots and lots of them, and to look suitably pale and aghast as the sums mounted. I was staggered at the cost of sending a child to college these days. Perhaps it is because we live in a community where these matters are treated earnestly, but nearly every college-bound youth in our town goes off and looks at half a dozen or more prospective schools at enormous cost. Then there are fees for college entrance exams and a separate fee for each university applied to. But all this pales beside the cost of college itself. My son's tuition is $19,000 a year, which I'm told is actually quite reasonable these days. Some schools charge as much as $28,000 for tuition. Then there's a fee of $3,000 for his room, $2,400 for food, $700 or so for books, $650 for health care, insurance, and $710 for activities. Don't ask me what that is. I just signed the checks. Still to come are the costs of flying him to and from Ohio at Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter, plus all the other incidental expenses like spending money and long-distance phone bills. Already my wife is calling him every other day to ask if he has enough money, when in fact, as I point out, it should be the other way around. And here's one more thing. Next year, I have a daughter who goes off to college, so I get to do this twice. So you'll excuse me, I hope, when I tell you that the emotional side of this event was rather overshadowed by the ongoing financial shock. It wasn't until we dropped him off at the university dorm and left him there looking touchingly lost and bewildered amid an assortment of cardboard boxes and suitcases in a Spartan room not unlike a prison cell, that it really hit home that he was vanishing out of our lives and into his own. Now that we are home, it is even worse. There's no kickboxing on the TV, no astounding clutter of sneakers in the back hallways, no calls of "Mom, where's my," from the top of the stairs. No one my size to call me a doofus or to say, "Nice shirt, Dad, did you mug a boat person?" In fact, I see it now, I had it exactly wrong. Even when he wasn't here, he was here, if you see what I mean. And now he's not here at all. It takes only the simplest things: a wadded up sweatshirt found behind the back seat of the car, some used chewing gum left in a patently inappropriate place, to make me want to blubber helplessly. Mrs. Bryson, meanwhile, doesn't need any kind of prod. She just blubbers helplessly. For the past week, I have found myself spending a lot of time wandering aimlessly through the house, looking at the oddest things: a basketball, his running trophies, an old holiday snapshot, and thinking about the carelessly discarded yesterdays they represent. The hard and unexpected part is the realization not just that my son is not here, but that the boy he was is gone forever. I would give anything to get them both back, but of course we can't do that. Life moves on, kids grow up and move away, and if you don't know this already, believe me, it happens faster than you can imagine. Which is why, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to finish here and go off and play a little basketball on the front lawn while the chance is still there.
Really like that piece. And I think it speaks to us who've had children, especially a son, and if they're gone, it's a hard thing to get your arms around. And I seek refuge in literature. I was an English teacher, and I've always used this piece. In fact, as a child of the 60s, this was a piece my wife and I had in our wedding. It's, I'm sure a lot of you will recognize it. It's a little philosophical poem from Khalil Gibran. It's called On Children. And I think the basic message here is that, we think our children belong to us, and they don't. They just come through us. So speak to us of children. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they don't belong to you. And though they are with you, yet they don't belong to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children as living arrows are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might, that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness, for even as he loves the arrow that flies, so he loves also the bow that is stable. So I guess one of the things that we want to talk to you about is that you need to recognize that you're the bow and your kids are the arrows, and that you need to be stable so that your kids can fly far. And that's part of our message and our goal today. But to deal with that, we want to talk about the behaviors. Behaviors of both parents and seniors, because they're very definite and recognizable, and I think you can do some things about them. Okay, seniors. Graduating seniors, some of the things that you're going to notice, if you haven't so far, a sense of senioritis. They get this affliction late in the spring. Maybe they got it earlier. A lot of heavy partying, lots of maybe some back talk, some irritability, some sullen behavior, some moodiness. They're going to test the limits. They're going to check to see where the line is that you've drawn in the sand. It could mean that they're staying out late, or they're coming in way past the curfew. They're going to test some things in terms of sex, drug, and rock and roll. School's going to be a little bit different. Maybe they're going to put quite as much into academics as they did. Certainly they won't be as obviously enthusiastic as they have been in the past. Things are going to be just a little bit off. Things are not going to be normal. Even with the so-called better kids, you're going to see some changes. Shirking jobs, obligations, maybe they're not going to want to go to church on the weekends, variety of things. Lack of following through, sleeping in late, maybe not sleeping at all. Reflecting back, what did you see with your kids, if anything, Frank?
Well, I think I saw most of that, actually. I think that's a very accurate portrayal of what children go through. There is all of this separation anxiety, and they feel it, everyone feels it, and I think it's very powerful, and we have to learn how to deal with that. Yeah. And learn to give them the space they need. This is their time in life, and I I think I was fortunate. Patrick was he knew what he wanted. He was very mature. He deals with money very well, and so he was. It wasn't as hard for me as I think it might be for some other families, but I was just lucky.
Yeah, I think we were pretty lucky too, my wife and I. But I think most kids and most parents are going to get through this, and it's a little warning sign, and it's natural. So take a look for it. Now, parents, we're not. We're included in this game as well, and maybe even more so. Some of the things you're going to see in yourself, maybe the wife, maybe the husband. Again, a little sadness, a little sullen behavior. Things are a little bit different, maybe pushy, maybe a little frustration, a little controlling, perhaps by one or more or both. I think there's a little envy, maybe. We envy these kids their youth, their freedom, their last big summer. Maybe we envy their romantic involvement, the things that are distant from us. I have a little story that I think illustrates some things where, if you don't get a control of this, it can be sort of sad. Now, this is sort of a funny story, but it's a true story. I have a cousin who's my age, and I haven't seen him for years, and he wanted to get as far away from his family as he could. And this is a true story. I wanted to get away from his controlling mother, and I thought my aunt was sort of crazy. She was one of these wingnuts. So Timmy applied to the University of Texas from Western Pennsylvania, moved all the way to Austin, Texas, set up his shop his freshman year, and thought he was going to have some freedom. Well, my aunt, and I'll protect her name here, she left my uncle, took one of the cars, got a bumper hitch, got one of these little trailers and drove it from Western Pennsylvania all the way to Texas and parked this thing. They wouldn't let her on campus. She parked it off campus, and she parked right outside of the campus while Timmy started his freshman year. Not stretching this one bit. Well, Timmy left Texas, and this is 40 years ago. We have not seen Timmy to this day. Every once in a while I hear stories of other families that'll do some things. Maybe they'll move towards the college campus or whatever. They'll move back east. We have some of our boarding student families who move from out of town into the Monterey Peninsula to be close to their kids, and they'll leave after 4 years. I understand that maybe in younger years, but the college years, they think that's a line that probably can't be crossed here. Overall, there's this feeling of emptiness. You've got this empty nest thing, and you feel hollow and empty inside, and it's something that's difficult to deal with. Now, why do these things occur both with the parents and the seniors? Well, 3 reasons. There's a sense of loss. There's certainly a fear of the future. And there's also a sense of guilt, more with the parents than there are with the kids. Okay, let's talk about loss for a second. Both the parents are losing friends that they've made through their kids, and the kids have lost, their best friends, how they've defined themselves. So where are you going to replace those? This sense of reputation, your accomplishments, you've been the starting first baseman, you've run the radio show, you've maybe been the student council leader, the pack leader with Boy Scouts, whatever, or maybe the parents. You've been the head of the Pirate Parent Club, or maybe you've been one of the assistant coaches, but you've defined yourself through your kids, much the same as your kids have defined themselves on campus. So you've got this whole identity, this role, this position that you've got to give up, and you've got to start over again. Now, a parent might start it over with a younger child. The student's got to start it on campus, and that's a pretty frightening, daunting thing to look into. There's also this sense of security in having your role, who you are, and you wake up every day and you go through the motions, and you're not tested. There's no fear, there's no change. Until the child, the son or daughter, leaves, and then it's a big change. Also, the son or daughter might fear the loss of these guidelines. They like being told what they can and can't do. Once they don't have those guidelines, they're taking some risk, and then they've got to suffer some consequences of things. Also, parents, they're going to have that loss of giving the guidelines, being the controller, the person who sets the pace. And what do I do now that I don't have this part of my life to control? So that can be a little daunting as well. Fears, the second thing, probably both groups equally share fears. What are you afraid of? Well, parents, what am I going to do now? Especially a mom if she's working at home, or a dad is working at home. What's my new job going to be? What am I going to do for these last, age 45 through 60 or whatever when I retire? How are we going to deal with this empty nest syndrome? And this certainly has to do with, a marriage and a couple looking at each other. And, I understand that the year 35 in a marriage is a very, very dangerous year, because, people are coming home from their jobs, they're retiring, and the kids are gone, and that's when a lot of the divorces take place. So this empty nest syndrome, can be a problem. One of the things that the students can fear: how am I going to fit in college? What role am I going to play? Am I going to do my sport? Am I going to try to be the leader? Am I going to do these things I've done in the past? And then will I fail? Again, parents are feeling this. Where's my kid going to fit in? Will they fail after being so successful? A little bit of guilt, some examples, more so with the parents. Have I done enough for my kids? I can't do much anymore. Are they ready? Can they make it? Is he or she ready to take on what life is going to dish out? Can she protect herself on campus? Can he protect himself in the city? These sorts of things. What did I miss? What didn't I prepare? There's something I should have done as a parent, and it's maybe too late right now. And also the kids might have a modicum of guilt here. Leaving your parents as they hit into their older age and hit into the retirement, a little different financial strain. Are they going to be okay without me? We've seen that with some of our students who really are sensitive and are looking out for their parents. So how do you deal with all this? As a guy, guys like to solve problems. So one of the first things you have to do is recognize these things. I think families got to communicate to each other, the husband with the wife, both parents with the kids. And then the easy thing is to focus on the logistics. Let's keep busy, let's start packing, let's make lists, let's do all the stuff that we have to do. So logistics is broken down into a couple things. Preparing for the next couple of months, on your mark, get set, and go. On your mark deals with the paper chase, as well as breaking the bank. And what do we mean by the paper chase? Ways to keep busy by getting your head in the paper. Well, first of all, lots of university deadlines. You've got to send in down payment money. You've got to send in records of shots, fill out health forms, talking about roommates, all sorts of papers. And if you miss these deadlines, you can be in a world of hurt. One of the things has to do with your living quarters. And I can speak from experience. My daughter, I'm like the plumber with the leaky faucet. My daughter didn't listen to me. She didn't fill out her papers. And she got stuck way out in the hinterlands of her college freshman year, way away from the other freshmen. And she suffered some things from that by not getting this paperwork in. A lot of times schools will ask you to contact your roommates, write them a letter, maybe communicate so you can tell who's going to bring what. It's a good way to sort of break the ice and touch things. Other schools will not let you know who your roommate's going to be. It's going to be a big surprise. So there's that thing to deal with. Lots of names on campus that you should know. Frank, you've been on college campus. What are some important names that freshmen need to be aware of?
Well, they need to be aware of who their advisor is and go meet them. They need to know who the registrar is. They need to know where their classes are. I mean, it's all basic stuff, but they need to just find out where the basics are and feel comfortable, and then the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah, and the sooner you do that, the better. The bursar, who your advisor is, where the hospital is, maybe your coaches, all sorts of support systems, so forth. Okay, moving to breaking the bank. You need to have this money discussion. You need to talk about who's going to do what. Everybody knows the first thing, the room, book, fees, transportation, all those cost a certain amount of money, and those going in. Now there's a second group of costs that you're sort of unaware of, the unknown. Recreational needs, personal needs, miscellaneous needs, joining fraternities and groups, road trips, those sorts of things. In terms of financial responsibility, some of you may come from families where dad or mom is going to write a check. I suspect most of you are going to be families where you're going to be crimping and saving and surviving and seeking lots of ways to skin the cat in terms of paying for these bills. But you need to have this conversation about who's going to pay for what, how, when, and so forth. You need to be conversant and knowledgeable about checking accounts, bank cards, budgeting, just all the basics that maybe we don't do a good job teaching our kids, but you need to do that before they go off to college. You also need to decide, is your child going to have a job? And is the job going to be for survival or just for experience? My wife and I made a huge mistake with our son, who was the first one off to college. And we figured, well, we had a job in college, he can have a job in college. And that was a big mistake that cost us about $3,000 because what we gained in his experience and making a little bit of money, we lost in the fact that he couldn't study enough for some science courses and didn't get the grades that he wanted. And we felt he had to go to summer school to make those up, and so he could get into medical school and so forth. So it was sort of penny wise and pound foolish. It cost us about $2,800 and some experience, and we didn't have our daughter go through that. That's something that you need to talk about as a family. If you need to work, and working's good. You can get, it's a resume builder. It's a, good thing for life, but at what cost? You can win this Pyrrhic victory and pay for it later. Now, an emergency money situation. Now, what if something comes up? There's a wreck, there's a health issue. You can't go and solve it. You can't jump in a plane. You can't drive 800 miles. You need to talk about this beforehand. What's going to come about to solve those problems? Okay, get set. Before you go off to college, a lot of last-minute checkups. For example, and shop till you drop. A lot of buying you have to do. And then parental expectations. 3 things we need to talk about here. Okay, last-minute checkups. They can involve physical checkups, your dental checkups, your eyes, where are you going to get prescriptions and drugs, shots, and probably going to need to take this more seriously than normal. I mean, there are a lot of things going around campuses. We talked about this, and we went over to Costco and bought shots for our kids. This hepatitis, there's A, B, and C, and I'm not a scientist here, but I know one is really unforgiving, and you need to take care of that. So talk to your doctors, see what shots you need to get them, and get them taken care of in advance. Shopping, it's best to do it before you go. You can always keep busy and doing that while you're on campus, but beforehand, you need to have a little list and take care of things. Obviously, if you're going back east and you're going into a 4-season place, you need to shop for the seasons. Frank could tell us all about that at Colby. In California, we just buy one set of clothes. When you go back there, you need to dress in layers and dress for the seasons. I think it's probably not a bad idea to get several sets of socks and underwear, especially if you're a guy. Guys tend to just recirculate that stuff or throw it in a hamper and then until they run out and then they go out and buy more. Girls might be a little bit better about that, but go prepared. Get some depth there. You'll have to decide about a linen service. Can be expensive, but it's consistent. You don't have to worry about it. I tried that for a while freshman year and then got away from it and learned to take care of my laundry and so forth. Again, a family discussion you need to have about how you're going to solve that problem. Room supplies, you want to visit Office Club, Costco, anticipate what it's going to be like living on your own, having a computer. Also having friends that have those items as well. You don't want to have your office or your room with duplications and 3s and 4s. So, and especially with this equipment, refrigerator, microwave, computer, printer, phone, stereo TV. You don't want to come with 2 and 3 of these, depending on what your roommate is. So that might be a good thing that you talk to your roommate about beforehand, so you can solve those problems in advance. And then on top of that, you've got all these recreation needs. You're going to take your rollerblades, your golf clubs, your skis, depending on where you go to school and what all you do. And there's not that much room in these little college spaces. So you want to maybe take those on the next trip. But again, you want to talk about these beforehand. And we provide a nice little handout for our family. Okay, parental expectations. If you haven't had, I presume people have had the birds and the bees talk. But if you can't, that horse is out of the barn by now. But there's some things you can talk about in terms of goals. What do you want to accomplish in these next 4 years? Do you remember one specific goal you had for your son as he went into this process, Frank?
No, I can't think that I had a specific goal. My son is a wonderful young man. I saw this, instead of looking at this as a danger, I tried to concentrate on it as being an opportunity.
Yeah, the good positive.
And so I just said, Patrick, go for it, do what you need to do. I'm here, you know how to get in touch with me, and that's it.
Okay, I think
we've developed, as a matter of fact, our relationship has
gotten better. Yeah, that's neat. That's one of the nice things about college, a hidden little surprise secret here. I think at some point you need to talk about grades. What grades are acceptable? You're certainly going to probably get lower grades than you did in high school, so you need to talk about that and be aware of that. What are some of the rewards and consequences for grades, for behaviors, for joining things? Your son or daughter, you want them to be a certain person, they want to become a certain person, and you have to have sort of a game plan for that. So I think you need to talk beforehand and discuss the level of communication, and so you don't get into a situation like this. And I want to share this real experience with you so you can learn about perspective here. And this came from one of our former students, and I came across it and I was just sort of horrified, but I want to spare you the pain here. And this is a letter from, I think this was her first letter home from college. Dear Mom and Dad, I'm sorry I haven't written for so long, but I lost everything the night that the demonstrators burned the dormitory down. I'm out of the hospital now, and the doctor says my eyesight should return to normal soon. The wonderful boy Bill, who rescued me from the fire, offered to let me share his apartment. I accepted, and, well, you always said you wanted a grandchild, so, and then they left off. Love, Mary. P.S. Please disregard the above. There was no fire. I haven't been in the hospital. I'm not pregnant, and I don't even have a boyfriend. But I did get a D in French and an F in Western civilization. And I wanted you to receive this news in the proper perspective. So I think this is, funny, but it serves, and this wasn't true. It serves a really good lesson. We've got to keep things in proper perspective. A D in a class for the first time, Not the end of the world. When you get a string of Ds, I think you need to maybe enter the picture and try to have a talk here. But again, best to take care of these beforehand. Also, that applies to the level of involvement with activities, whether it's sports or leadership or student council. Now, if your son or daughter's done, everything in high school, 6 or 7 things, that's not going to happen in college. You just don't have enough time or ability, or the competition. It's not going to happen. So you have to have, a plan about how you're going to spend your time and money and efforts. You might want to talk about the courses. Dad's going to want you to make money and be in business. Mom is going to want you to, be close to home and do certain things where she can get to you. And I'm using stereotypes here. If you're an international family or a nation family or a Pakistani or Indian family, of course you have to have your son or daughter become a doctor. So if the person wants to be an artist, you need to have this discussion here. And so I think that can lead to lots of problems if you don't talk these things through in advance. Last thing, personal, spiritual growth values, religion, how you want to have the spiritual life, if you've had one, if you want that to continue, or if that changes during the course of events, how are you going to deal that with your kids? And then the last thing, drugs, sex, and rock and roll, that's going to be a personal thing that your family deals with, and I'm not sure that I can give you any advice there, but it's certainly something that's going to come up with. Okay, as you go, how do you get there? Dealing with farewells, planes, trains, automobiles, arriving on campus, and so forth. Okay, how much should you take? How many boxes? How are you going to get there? How are you going to get all this stuff to school? In a car? What happens if you go on a plane? You're going to ship this stuff? Are you going to mail it? UPS? It can be very, very expensive. Again, you need to think about this beforehand. It's good to start with a list, what you can bring right away, what you need, what you can bring in later. You also have to deal with things at home. You're going to clear out your son's or daughter's room. What are you going to do with that extra stuff? Where are you going to pack it? What are you going to do with that extra room you have yourself? Second thing I want you to deal with is fond farewells. You want to make sure that you have them occur like you want them to occur. You don't want to have that dictated. So, maybe have a party with the friends, one single party, the very close friends, maybe early on, middle way through the summer. At some point, you want to have an extended party, all your aunts and uncles, and just have this last goodbye party, so you're not rushing it in last minute in August. I think it's important to teach your kids to have, write a little thank you note, to your gymnastic teacher, to your first grade teacher, to your favorite history teacher, to your coach, maybe a Sunday school teacher, people that help shape you in your life. I think it's an important lesson adults can pass on to kids about that. And then I think you want to take into account the siblings, the young brother or daughter who's maybe looking up to an older sister or brother. They're their hero. They're going to be gone. Just think of what's happened in that life and what the effect's going to be on that little kid. So give that proper attention there as well. Okay, planes, trains, and automobiles. Are you going in a car? It's certainly different than if you fly. And who goes? One parent? Both parents? Is the whole family going? Are you going to go on a vacation? You need to deal with that in advance and try to make it meld with your plans. Okay, once on campus, you need to plan when this last minute goodbye is going to be. When the kiss, when the instructions, so it doesn't catch you off guard. Avoid these unrealistic expectations where there's going to be this crying and sobbing and these kids are going to be holding onto your legs. It's not going to happen that way. You're going to be doing that as parents, but the kids are going to probably want to get rid of you as quick as they can. The best thing you can do as parents, I think, is get out of the way. Help your kids when you can, but then get out of the way. Try to read their cues. Read their signs. If they're being a little abrupt, a little rude, they want to get away from you, they need to get on with their new environment. Let the kids make the decisions about the rooms. There's a lot of stuff for you to do. You can plan for the parents' weekends. You can go out and meet the other parents, go to the bursar. Lots of stuff to keep you busy here. Freshman year, life on the school front, life on the home front, and then they're back, these 3 periods of this freshman year. On the school front, college is different these days, and Frank's going to talk about this here in a second. Way different than when you went to school 10 or 20 years ago. There's going to be this wonderful honeymoon. Everything is great. All my professors are wonderful. The friends I've met, everybody's great. I can't believe how boring my family, my parents, and my hometown is. There are just a plethora of exciting people, places, events, wonderful things to do. They're exploring, they're trying on identities, sex, dress, intimacy, all sorts of social alternatives, things they just weren't aware of, especially if you're from Keokuk, Iowa. We might take things like that for granted in California, but around the country, lots of big changes here. There's this virtual intoxication of freedoms that they're going to deal with. Now, at a certain point through the fall, that honeymoon's going to be over. They're going to realize it's not really like home. They don't have their own room. They've got this ugly roommate from hell. They don't get in the fraternity or sorority that they do, or they get into the one they want, and they've got problems. It's not like what they expected. They either drinking too much, or they're not allowed to drink at all. They're spending all-nighters studying. They're crushed by their first exams. They get their first grades, the first B they've ever gotten, the first C, whatever. They're losing confidence. Things are generally awful. You know, they can't talk with their professor. They don't trust them. They're not speaking the same language. They don't have office hours. Lots of ugly, bad things happen. Maybe they haven't even gotten the swing of how to study. So you'll go from a euphoria to dysphoria. Lots of problems here. They no longer feel special. They're not the big king on the block anymore. There's some overeating, maybe some overdrinking, maybe sleeping too much, sleeping too little, bulimia, all sorts of problems. And then maybe homesickness. Maybe not as much as we think, but once in a while. And then illness. You get run down, you get mono, you get a variety of things, and you can't deal with them. Not to mention the inability to budget time. So huge adult problems that can sometimes result in, this is the wrong fit, I made a big mistake here. Frank's going to elaborate on some of these things, and there are 10 top things, and we borrowed these from a variety of people, things they don't tell you about in these glossy brochures when they mail you all this paraphernalia about college. So Frank, what do we have in store here?
Well, I'm just going to do the number 10. You really are just a number here, but only sometimes. There are limited resources, even at a large, prestigious school. But ready to fight for what you want, sign up early, plan ahead. Courses are limited, study abroad programs have caps, the best dorms are all sought. Get involved. No one will make you do stuff. Number 9, stealing laundry, etc. The fact is that if you don't lock your room and put your stuff away in the right place or a proper place, it may walk away. That's reality of life. Be prepared to watch your stuff or watch it disappear. Bring homework with you to the laundry room. Hang out there. Buy a new set of clothes. That's your choice. Yes, they even take underwear and socks. Write your name on all your stuff. Number 8, hours in a week, 168. Hours you are in class. Okay, if you're really loading up on courses, 15 hours is good. That is a lot of time to do still leaves you a lot of time to do what you want with at school. Use it well, and you can have plenty of fun and still do well in your classes. Number 7, 7, 5, 10, 15, do I hear 20? This is an old one, but worth remembering. Many of you have spent years in sports. Most won't participate when in college. Be sure to exercise, watch the pizza and beer, or watch yourself magically begin to expand. Number 6, you will arrive at college with a devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other. Turning 18 and going away to school means never being able to blame your parents or your poor choices ever again. Number 5, if you get a reputation, don't be surprised if there isn't a thing you can do about it. Given the power of the internet, it's best to avoid cameras. Employers actually Google names. Yikes. Which leads me to number 4. When you find someone you can trust, stick with them. They will introduce you to someone hot, hold your hair or favorite shirt out of the way while you are praying to the porcelain altar, if you know what that means, and they will keep you safe. Use the buddy system, male and female. It works. Number 3, get out and see the countryside. Going to school far from home, you did that to experience a different part of the country, by bus or car or train. Take plenty of weekend road trips with friends. You'll never forget them, and please drive sober. Regifting can be fun. Sometimes people give you great sweatshirts, concert tickets, books, CDs, or other cool stuff that had first been given to them. Sometimes, however, people give you bad things: herpes, AIDS, unwanted pregnancies, roofie in your drink, bad dope, or something else you may regret. Be careful. Unintended results from gifts can end your college fund in a hurry. And finally, number 1, there's a huge adjustment. How many of you have spoken to friends or siblings about how hard their adjustment was? How long did it take for them to settle in or feel comfortable, feel like they had some friends? A day, that would be a miracle. Weeks, that would be rare but admirable. 3 months, usually that's the case. Take your time, enjoy yourself, look around, get involved.
And that just touches maybe the tip of the iceberg. Lots and lots of good ideas about college. And I'm going to give you some examples of some books that you can read and take a look at later. Okay, we're going to get back to the life on the home front. Now, your kids are away in your freshman year. What is it like back with you and your wife at home? Lots of peace and quiet. There's this empty nest, the change of life, aging, and a different approach to marriage. It's just you again. It could be a very romantic, nice, wonderful thing, or it could be two people staring at each other they haven't seen for years. So you want to be very circumspect about what goes on. Now, how much are we going to talk to these kids? You know, how are we going to communicate? Letters, email, texting, cell phone. You need to talk about that. You need to decide how much is too little, too much, too little, or just avoidance. Now, the kids most likely aren't going to initiate this, and the parents most likely will try to do more than is wanted. So you need to work that out in advance a little bit. Some of the things you can do, think about some of these care packages that you can get involved with the mothers clubs, send them little cakes on special occasions, little study things, a lot of nice things you can do. If there's a long distance illness problem, you need to work out in advance how you're going to solve that. Now, this leads us to one of the final parts here. They're back. What happens at Thanksgiving? This is really an interesting part. They haven't been home for 3 or 4 months. This is the first time home, and you're going to see a different person. New attitude, different persona. A liberal may become conservative and vice versa. You may find this upbeat, happy kid has become cynical. You know, this very narrow-minded kid becomes very global. You'll find this new pseudo-intellectual in your family with a pseudo-sophistication. They're definitely different, and this is fine. This is okay, because that's why you send kids away to school. You might also see some physical changes. Different hair, different color, different dress, jewelry, tattoos, pieces of steel in the body. It can be fairly frightening, and that's okay. College is a laboratory. It's lots of testing. They're testing themselves to see who they are. You're spending all this money to help them define this identity, but when they're home, you've got to talk about and think about how you're going to deal with the rules of the house. Do you treat these kids as equals or as kids? You know, when they sit down and they pull out a cigarette or they want a glass of wine and they're still 18, are you going to talk to them about it? Are you going to, judge them? They're going to dig their heels in. You're going to get uppity. As long as you're in my house, you're going to live this way. All sorts of things like this can happen to crush a relationship. And before I go with that one, the key thing is, what if you bring a friend home? A guy brings his girlfriend home for the weekend, and then about 11 o'clock or so, people are thinking, well, geez, who's going to sleep where? And the friend says, well, Susie and I are going to go off and retire for the evening, and you haven't had that discussion. Well, the ball's in your court. What are you going to do about it? Frank, what would you do about it, or what did you do about that?
That's a complex question. I don't think that I care to answer that one.
All right, that's a tough one, and maybe that's a good rule of thumb. You need to maybe.
I think you have to know where you are.
Yeah,
you have to know where you are, and then your child will know where he or she is.
And that brings us to Thanksgiving. And after Thanksgiving, I think you're on your own here. So as we come to the last 10 minutes or so, I've got some final advice for you, and a little poem called Letting Go. And then normally we have the parents, when we have this workshop, the parents read to each other another little poem. But just something you can take with you and you can do together as a family. Some questions for both the parents and students, and you can do this, just copy these down and sit together at the kitchen table and do this exercise and follow along here. First question is, what about college concerns parents the most? And then at the same time, what about college concerns students the most? And what are some of the answers that we find with those? What are parents most concerned about, Frank?
I think they're concerned about the social adjustment of their children. Are they going to be happy? Are they going to get along? Are they going to do the right thing and that sort of thing? I think that's natural and normal, and they're worried about this. I think they're worried about will my child succeed?
Yeah,
what will they run up against? What will they do? They have roommate issues. There are so many things that are going on out there that we no longer control.
Exactly.
And I think we have to learn, painfully at times, to just let go. There's a line from T.S. Eliot. Teach me to care and not to care. Teach me to sit still. It's a wonderful thing to think about as your children go off to college. You can care about them, but at the same time, you need to have your distance from them and sit still, because they will always come back to you.
And that's part of letting go. That's our major theme here. Now, what are college kids concerned the most? Am I going to succeed? Am I going to make the team? Am I going to find a boyfriend, a girlfriend? Normal things. Now, what do parents look forward to the most? And when we've done this, one of the things that sticks in my mind is parents said that they look forward to seeing their kids grow up as adults. And that's sort of a nice thought. You know, you get some dangerous things too. Parents look forward to, you know, maybe unrealistic expectations, or they, you know, maybe cynical or negative. But, you know, we find lots of different things when we do this exercise. So I invite you to do this with your families. And what do students look forward to the most? What are some of the things that you remember our kids saying?
Well, I think they're looking forward to new opportunities. They're looking forward to being out on their own. This is for students who aren't boarding students.
Yeah.
Of course, our students at Stevenson, half of them are boarding students. So going away to college is just another extension
Yeah,
of
they've done
that.
that
They're
before.
already away from home. But I think that it's all very exciting, a lot of new things. I think that the challenge, I think, is to keep your expectations down a little bit. And then you can be surprised. If you go to college with high expectations that everything is going to be wonderful, then you're setting yourself up for disappointment.
Okay, so parents have fears, students have fears. What do they fear the most? Some things you can talk about. Also, and I did this sort of as a selfish thing, I ask our parents and our students about this whole last year of application, this whole process that's way blown out of proportion. You know, what would you change? And a lot of the parents and the kids say the same things. Things like, you know, it shouldn't be as big as it is. I wish there wasn't this whole focus on selectivity and elitism. You know, I wish it wasn't so expensive. I wish it wasn't so drawn out. Lots of criticisms. You know, so that's something you can help your school and your counselor out with. So you can give advice on both those grounds. And then maybe one of these last thoughts, if you could tell your student one thing before he or she leaves, what would it be? Do you remember what you told your son or daughter?
I said to him, Patrick, don't do anything you don't want to do. That's all I said.
Yeah. And we found some really nice, we've had the kids and the parents in one room, and we found some really nice exchanges. You know, parents will say, you know, I trust you, I want you to have fun, I'll be here for you, I love you, you know, really nice things. And concomitantly, the parents, or the kids have said really nice things. They've told their parents they love you, thanks for sacrificing for me, all these wonderful nice things that you would like to hear coming out of kids. So that can be a nice exercise for a family to do as well. You know, the last thing you can say before you leave. Now, I wanted to close with a little personal story I have that involves my son. I remember it like it was yesterday. My son's leaving, last day in the summer. He goes out with his buddies. They go out to a bar or someplace, and they come in. My wife and I go to bed. It's about 3 in the morning, and we're awakened by a noise upstairs. So my wife and I creep upstairs, and we look in our family room, and our son is in there with one of his best friends. He's a football player, both big athletes, and they're in there playing with all these Star Wars things. You know, Tauntaun and Darth Vader and all this stuff. And it's like they're 5th grade, you know, these little kids. And we both were sort of laughing about it. We thought it was sort of touching. But then the metaphor was they were holding on to their childhood. You know, they were afraid of the future sort of like we were. And it's okay. It was okay for our kids to be kids for that one last moment, because my son got on this treadmill that's been like for 15 years, and he's just now getting off. You know, he's getting ready to go to Chicago on this fellowship, and he's had like 15 years of being a hard student, so it's okay for you kids to be that little kid for that last time. I hope you get that experience for that type of thing. Some final advice about the theme here. These next couple years are going to be wonderful. You're going to see your kids grow, you're going to change, it's going to be the most wonderful times in your life, so you have to embrace that. And what you have to do is look at the glass half full. It's a great experience. Trust, love, fear, don't hold on. Let them go. And students, you need, if your parents aren't letting you, you need to break away. Your parents love you, but they have to let go of you. And if they don't, you have to give them a little nudge. You can do it diplomatically in the right way, but both of you have to do it. Otherwise, you won't be a successful child, and your parents won't be successful parents. So break away and let go. And I want to read one last little thing that we read as, you know, to our families about letting go. I don't know where I found this. It's anonymous, but it's called Letting Go, a Relinquishment Foundational to Our Faith. To let go doesn't mean to stop caring. It means I can't do it for someone else. To let go is not to cut myself off. It's the realization that I can't control another person. To let go is not to enable, but to allow learning from natural consequences. To let go is to admit powerlessness, which means the outcome is not in my hands. To let go is not to try to change or blame another. I can only change myself. To let go is not to care for, but to care about. To let go is not to fix, but to be supportive. To let go is not to judge, but to allow another to be a human being. To let go is not to be in the middle arranging all the outcomes, but to allow others to affect their own outcomes. To let go is not to be protective. It is to permit another to face reality. To let go is not to deny, but to accept. To let go is not to nag, scold, or argue, but to search out on my own shortcomings and to correct them. To let go is not to adjust everything to my desires, but to take each day as it comes. To let go is not to criticize and regulate anyone, but to try to become the dream that I can be. To let go is not to regret the past, but to grow and live for the future. To let go is to fear less and love more. So we're inviting you to let go. As we close, there are a couple resources if you want to follow up on this for parents and kids. The Naked Roommate, things you might run into in college. You're on your own when your kid goes to college. 101 things a college girl should know. Been there, done that, or should have done that. Confessions of a College Freshman, Girl's Guide to College, and so forth. So as we bring this to close, I want to thank you for watching us this season and last season. I think you've been a wonderful audience. We've gotten some nice feedback. We look forward to this again next year, and we also invite you to take a look during the summer. We're going to be posting a schedule, and you'll see this whole series in a row throughout the summer. It'll rotate, and hopefully again next fall you'll join us. So I want to thank the parents for joining us. I want to thank the students for watching us, and thank our guest Frank. This is Dave Miller. Wishing you the best luck as you search for your perfect college, and also to remind you that it's never too early to start looking for college, and it's never too late to get started. Have a good day, and best wishes with your college search.